Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Laura Wilkerson, and I'm a nurse practitioner. And this week, we are going to be talking about recognizing the early signs and symptoms in this week's episode of Your Weekly Dose. With the holidays that have just passed and with the holidays that are upon us, it's a great time for those of us who don't often get to see our loved ones to recognize some signs and symptoms that they might be changing. I'm working with a client right now, and she said that I could share this. We're going to call her Sarah. And Sarah and I have been working together for some time now. And Sarah said that she spent the Thanksgiving holidays at her parents'. And when she was with her dad, she said that she noticed that he was forgetting quite a few things, that he was forgetting names of their family members. And she said that they had a huge gathering at their house. So everybody kind of came in from all over and settled in with her parents. And she said that during dinner that she noticed that her dad was having trouble recalling names of some of the family members that were there. That he was calling them by the wrong name, or when he was telling a story that he referred to somebody using the wrong name. And she just kind of made a mental note of that. And she said she just kind of skipped over it, change in the routine, lots of people in the house, busy, things going on. But she said that on Sunday, when they went to go to church, everything was kind of in a bustle. And she said dad was driving, everybody was in the car, and they were driving, and he pulled up into the bank. And she said, "Dad, what are you doing?" And he said, "I didn't get a really good night's sleep last night. And so I'm just a little bit off today." And she said, "Okay." And so he kind of changed directions and he went off to church, and they spent the day in church and those kind of things. And later, Sarah said that she had mentioned to her mom that she noticed these changes that were happening in her dad, and her mom just kind of blew her off and said, "It's nothing. He didn't get a good night's sleep. All these people in the house, the holidays, everything kind of changing." And so Sarah just kind of put this in the back of her mind. And she reached out to me and she said, "My dad's having some of these little signs and symptoms." She's like, "I don't really know if it's anything or if it's really, truly the holidays." And so we started diving into exactly what was happening. And she talked about, the fact that he was forgetting things and that he went to the bank when he should have been going to church. And she said that she had actually noticed that his personal hygiene was a little bit off. And she said, "My dad is this man who was extremely meticulous." And she said, but he was a little bit disheveled and a little bit off. And she, she had noticed it. These things really are not uncommon, but these are slight little changes that we need to make mental notes of when we're, either caring for our elderly parents or we're going to be caring for our elderly parents. Three of the most common subtle changes that you can notice in your loved one. And again, sometimes they're nothing and you can just put them in the back of your mind because the person was, in the bustle of the holiday, or you can make a mental note and you can keep track of that and you can write it down and document, which is my preference, because your mind will never recall exactly what happened in that moment. So those three subtle signs are memory lapses, forgetting things that are normal in their routine, recalling names of people that they're familiar with, places or events in time. Most of the time, you'll see that in your person with recent memories. They might be able to remember something from the past, but if you're talking about something that happened earlier in the day, it might not be something that they can recall, like asking them what they had for breakfast. If you ask me what I had for breakfast, I might not remember just because of my busyness, but they will definitely remember things that happened further in the past. Disorientation, that's a big one. Forgetting familiar places or how to get someplace or how to use an everyday object, handing mom the can opener while she's making Christmas or Thanksgiving meal, handing her the can opener and her just kind of looking at it and being like, I don't know what to do with this. I know what it is, but I'm not sure what to do with it. These holidays give us a really good opportunity to observe our parents or our person that we're concerned about. It gives us a great opportunity to observe them in their environment. And changes in their daily activities. Sarah said that she noted that her dad wasn't taking care of himself as well as he had been in the past. And this was a concern for her because he was so meticulous. He had been a previous accountant and he had an office, so he would get dressed up every day. Whether he had clients or not, he was getting dressed up every single day. And he was suddenly looking a little bit disheveled. And that was concerning to her, not showering as much or brushing his teeth as much. But it could be other things too. It could be activities of daily living, like waking up and not having breakfast in the normal time and manner that they did before. So watch for a change in their activities of daily living. These changes or these subtle changes can be so slight that you might miss them if you're not paying attention. And then suddenly they creep up on you and you have a bigger problem. But making sure that you take note of those subtle changes and writing them down, because again, your memory will not remember what happened during that time. But if you write it down, keep a small little notebook, write it down, then that way your mind will trigger if this comes up again. I personally like to use mnemonics when I am working with patients or clients. And the mnemonic that I have for this is MAD, because your person can, if you bring it to their attention, they might actually get mad at you. So I like to use the mnemonic MAD when I'm remembering those subtle changes. So it's changes in memory or memory lapses. It is activities of daily living. If you see a shift in their activities of daily living, and the D stands for disorientation. So just keep in mind that you have to be really careful when you approach your person about these. Sarah's dad took it in stride when she brought it up to him. She was like, hey, Dad, this is what I've noticed. And he basically just told her, look, I've had a bad night's sleep. But it was concerning enough to Sarah that she brought it up to me and we started talking about it. Earlier today, I was in conversation with somebody who said he spent the holidays with his mother, and that in 10 minutes time, she repeated the same story 4 times, like he had never heard it. Well, that's concerning because she was forgetting within a 10-minute time that she had told the exact same story over to him 4 times in a row. And I said, hey, look, that would be concerning to me too. Make sure you write it down and make sure that when your sister takes your mom to her doctor's appointment, that you mention this. Again, it's one episode, but it might be an episode it might be something that happens over and over again. But if you document this one time, then you'll be sure to remember it again later. Hey, mom was repeating again, or dad got lost going to the grocery store, or mom didn't know how to use that can opener. So use the mnemonic MAD and make sure that you don't make your person mad when you approach them. Make sure that you go in and establish some open communication with them, create a safe spot. Don't do it in front of the whole family and say, Mom, you've been repeating that story over and over again 4 times. Please, can you just stop it? Just make sure you create a safe space for you to share your feelings and for them to share their experience and maybe what's happening with them. Don't attack them. Don't, accuse them. Just go at them very super gently and provide some grace in that conversation, because maybe they really are experiencing a deficit, and maybe the other person caring for them, in this case, Sarah's mom, it might be a situation where mom is covering up for dad and mom is stepping up, which is what I think that we're finding, is that Sarah's mom is compensating for her dad's deficits. And again, it might be nothing at first, but then it turns into something. But if you're paying attention to these subtle signs and these subtle symptoms, it just gives you that much more to work with when you go to that doctor's appointment or you go to, your physician and nurse practitioner's office. It gives you much more to give them to work with your person, because early detection is so important. Now, I've discussed 3 of the 10 most common, and if you want to jump ahead, because next week we'll be talking about 3 more subtle signs and symptoms that you can pay attention to in your loved one, especially during these holidays when you're visiting or spending time with your family members. But if you want to jump ahead, you can download my free guide, which is at laurafnp.com. You can download my free guide, and that will show you the top 10 signs and symptoms that you can pay attention to in your loved one who is experiencing dementia. If you have any questions, concerns, or something to share, please drop those in the comments below. And next week, Monday is Christmas, but I will be joining you from a remote location on next Monday. And I'm very super excited to share the next 3 subtle signs and symptoms that you can look for in your loved one that you might be concerned about as having some cognitive changes. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next week.